It gives me great pleasure now to invite up the CEO of the AIBS, Brett Mace, for a presentation to you. So make Brett welcome, please. Thank you.
Thanks, John, and good morning. I'm delighted to be here today representing AIBS. I want to acknowledge my AIBS colleagues, Vice President Wayne Liddy, Stephen Sciminello, along with our chapter committee members, and I'd also like to acknowledge their work that they do on behalf of AIBS and the profession. Over the past 5 years, AIBS has undergone a significant transformation. From a fragmented, state-based organisation, we are now a more modern, dynamic national organisation, financially viable, led by a strong board and supported by a very professional team in the AIBS office. While AIBS recently released our vision for the next 3 years through our strategic plan, I'm not going to bore you today with the corporate jargon in these, but instead focus on the work we've been undertaking in the interests of the profession and the industry. First up, I wanted to speak to our building regulatory reform policy. This policy is a detailed, holistic overview of what we believe is a best practice national building regulatory system and the platform for our advocacy. While we acknowledge its ambitions in its entirety, we believe many of the individual components could be utilised by governments to improve current systems. An example of our work in this area was in Victoria last week with the release by AIBS of a discussion paper from some of Victoria's most highly regarded building surveyors. In this paper, long-standing and current key concerns in the building regulatory system in Victoria were articulated, along with proposed solutions that represent many years of experience and expertise, as well as referencing our policy. Earlier this month, I represented AIBS at the Industry Roundtable as part of the Building Ministers Forum in Hobart. The theme of this roundtable, Supporting a Culture of Compliance, was an opportunity to meet with ministers and other industry bodies and for AIBS to outline what we'd been doing in this area. I highlighted 2 key AIBS initiatives where we sought support from the BMF. The first was I reiterated that we had closely examined the profession over the past 4 years, and it was our considered view that building surveying would be significantly enhanced through the development of a professional standard scheme. In this, the support we sought from government was not financial, but through the requirement for building surveyors to be a member of a professional standard scheme as part of their registration. It's only with this support will such a scheme become a reality. The second initiative was in relation to the various and confusing labels used across jurisdictions to describe our profession and the need for a single, consistent name that properly reflects the role a statutory building surveyor undertakes. In some jurisdictions, building surveyors are referred to as certifiers and then building surveyors in others, which causes no end of confusion about the profession. Without a single term, it makes promoting the profession very difficult, and I note there's already been comments around that this morning about promoting the profession. While on the BMF, there was great enthusiasm just under 12 months ago when the Building Ministers Forum accepted a report containing 24 recommendations from Professor Peter Sheargold and Ms Bronwyn Weir. And I think everyone's really fortunate to have Bronwyn here today, and I think we'll get a lot out of it. Their report and the recommendations, which were widely welcomed by industry, gave considerable hope that there would be genuine reform, particularly in providing greater consistency and harmony nationally. However, there is now some concern from AIBS and also others in industry that the implementation of these recommendations are not only being delayed, but in fact watered down. AIBS have two concerns from the last BMF communique on these recommendations. The first relates to the joint implementation plan commissioned by the BMF that sets out the direction of the proposed reforms. The BMF had previously committed to consulting with industry in the development of this plan, but to our disappointment, there's been no or little consultation, and furthermore, still no sign of the plan, although I think we're expecting it in the next few weeks. The second concern surrounds the lack of genuine effort to seek consistency of reforms and national harmonisation, one of the great hopes of this report. We all understand the historic difficulty of seeking consistency across all states and territories, but the statement saying, wherever possible, jurisdictions will adopt reforms consistent with those in place or proposed in other jurisdictions, we think highlights the lack of genuine attempt in achieving greater consistency. There needs to be strong leadership to make this reality. With all the recent media surrounding a number of building failures, we continue to be concerned around the reference by many that the building surveyor is responsible for any defects and shortcomings in the building, simply because they signed off or issued the occupancy certificate. We all know this is an oversimplification, but what this highlights is the need for the role to not only be more clearly defined, but consistent across all jurisdictions. AIBS members here will be aware of a survey that was sent out ahead of a board workshop to be held in Adelaide next week, which will better define the role of the statutory building surveyor. We'll keep you up to date on this progress and in the coming months as we work to finalise position. And just on that, I think it was mentioned by Sue and many others here that we need to understand what that role is and then work to achieve consistency across the states. And that's pretty much what our outcome of that we're looking to achieve. I also was encouraged by Sue in regards to the education qualifications here in Victoria, and everything's back on the table. And we've been highlighting our concerns about the lack of clarity and transparency of the current education qualifications in Victoria. Over the past 2 years, we have sought from government a clear definition of what constitutes a degree, what is the accepted AQF level for a degree, and also how the VBA assess the qualifications. We've also questioned why a number of education qualifications accredited by AIBS for unlimited registration have not been accepted by Victoria, despite AIBS having a panel of academics and professionals assessing each course against the National Accreditation Framework, supported by on-site visits, meetings, student interviews with each institution. We ask why some AIBS courses are not accepted in Victoria, yet widely accepted nationally, and how confident can we be in the absence of any published or similar process that the non-accredited AIBS courses in Victoria are delivering suitable and relevant qualifications to the building surveyors of tomorrow. Another issue that AIBS has been dealing with recently, and it's been raised here this morning, and I notice it's the top of Bronwyn's list, is the PI insurance. We've been at the forefront of this issue, and twice in the past years, we've been responsible for identifying and alerting industry and government to this issue, and we are very concerned by the latest developments. As many of you would be aware, we issued a statement last week with advice from our national partner, BRIC. We were advised that another major insurer of hundreds of building surveying firms would no longer be offering PI insurance policies free of exclusions in relation to combustible cladding, a key requirement for registration. While I won't go over all the information in our statement, what is becoming increasingly clear is that PI insurance for building surveyors is at a crisis point, and there is an urgent requirement for industry and government to work together in addressing the issue. AIBS has always and will continue to maintain that the responsibility for the external cladding issued is a shared responsibility between government and industry, and therefore the responsibility for rectifying it should also be shared. As it currently stands, owners have sole responsibility for the rectification of combustible external cladding, and we are now starting to see owners seeking compensation for the cost of rectification through whatever means they can. This means industry, and particularly building surveyors who hold insurance policies, will be targeted by owners seeking compensation. There are estimates as to how much this rectification could likely cost, some running into the billions, but industry and their insurance cannot continue to foot the bill alone. To this end, we have advocated since last year's PI crisis that a government funding model is required to support the rectification works. And just on a final note on the PI insurance from me, back in August last year, we were advised and encouraged that the Victorian Government, on behalf of the BMF, would be leading the development of a strategy to address the PI insurance issue. However, there's been no mention or update after the last BMF and in their communique on the strategy, nor anything further. So given the most recent advice, we are really very disappointed and frustrated. Such is the position. Governments now need to show real leadership and develop a nationally consistent funding model to contribute, along with industry, we have to be part of that as well, to the rectification of all buildings with combustible external cladding, which has led to this issue. Going on to a little bit more of a positive note, I wanted to outline our direction in the key area of professional development, another issue that's been raised this morning. Such is the importance that we place in this area, AIBS last year appointed highly qualified building surveyor and academic Stephen Shimonello to guide our professional development program into the future. Stephen has a vast range of experience and expertise and will be working to ensure that our professional development is second to none. His focus will not only be on upskilling and ensuring our current building surveyors keep up to date, but also ensuring there are viable pathways for future generations to be attracted to a rewarding and lucrative career in building surveying. Part of that program will also be, and it was mentioned here again this morning, mentoring and the training of younger building surveyors when they come out of university. That will form part of our program for the future. Since joining AIBS last year, a significant amount of Stephen's time has gone into developing our NCC 2019 Symposium, being held in Canberra from the 2nd to the 5th of April. As you will no doubt be aware, this is the first of the 3-year NCC change cycle introduced by the ABCB, and one that has brought about considerable change. In addition to the symposium, there will also be a series of national roadshows throughout the year that will drill down into much greater detail on key areas where the changes will most likely impact on building surveyors. I won't go into the details of each of these sessions here, but simply point you to the schedule of these roadshows, along with our symposium information on the AIBS website. And just further to reinforce our commitment to excellence in our professional development program, we are in the final stages of implementing our major online training platform, AIBS TV. This platform will provide a new era in training and education for AIBS and further increase our current delivery of professional development to members and professionals. Just a final comment in closing, I'd like to talk a little about collaboration. Over the past 4 years, AIBS has made considerable effort to professionalise our organisation, and we believe through the development of our building regulatory reform policy, our work towards a professional standard scheme, our representation to the non-conforming building products Senate inquiry, the BMF and other forums, we have established a significant body of work that is targeted towards improving the building regulatory system and the industry. Much of this work has been undertaken by our members who are in some cases the most highly regarded and sought after building professionals in the country, and most of this done is in a voluntary capacity. In saying this, we also recognise that most building regulatory systems are under-resourced by government and could not likely afford all the expertise from these leading professionals. So for this reason, it's critical that there is a high level of collaboration between government and industry to utilise this wealth of experience and knowledge for the benefit of the industry. There is a wonderful opportunity here for government to tap into this expertise through professional bodies with genuine consultation. Consultation, though, must be well structured, give consideration to the limited time of these experts, ensure there is productive dialogue, and just as importantly, there is mutual respect and transparency around the outcomes. AIBS is committed to achieving more effective collaboration and continual improvement in this area, and we look forward to the same commitment from government. Thank you.